Okay, welcome everybody. It's Dr. Fred, and welcome to what is likely to be an amazing, amazing interview conversation with somebody who really understands. We were just having a conversation before the start of this show, of this episode, and really getting how much we resonate together about the need to be a healthy healer in order to provide effective healing for our clients. The idea of providing resonating harmonic healing for somebody requires some degree of healing on our own. And although many people say that they are healed or think that they are healed, and none of us are really truly healed to the core, by the way, we all have plenty of healing left before we become entirely healed. But the more healed that we are and the more focus we give on ourselves to heal ourselves, the more likely we are to be effective healers and be able to resonate and connect with our clients. So I'm going to read a little bit from Sandra Cooze's bio here. Sandra Cooze. Trauma is not a life sentence. Powerful words spoken by a woman whose journey is proof that healing from trauma is not only possible, but opens the door to a world of endless possibilities. Sandra is an expert trauma healer, a certified TIR facilitator, an intuitive mentor and coach, a Reiki Master, and a published author. Her mission is to revolutionize trauma healing. She designed the full circle trauma healing method, a unique approach that not only focuses on releasing the trauma you had to experience, but also beliefs and conditioning you carried on from your ancestors and generations past. Her recently published book, Journey to Yourself, How to Heal from Trauma, takes a reader on a journey through the mysteries of trauma and the effects it can have on the body, mind, and spirit. While unraveling the concept of trauma, she lists helpful tools, leaves room for notes, and encourages her readers to work through their unique exercises she lists to support them on their healing journey. Thank you for being Sandra. Thank you for being here, Sandra. It's really great to have you as a guest. It's phenomenal, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fred. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. So, I'm privy to a little bit of information about you because you were kind and brave enough to answer my questionnaire about how you became a healer. And so I'm going to open the door a little bit with a question I'd like to ask, and both of my podcasts, the one that I had earlier called Welcome to Humanity, and this one, The Healthy Healer, which is a simple 9-letter question. The whole question only involves 9 letters, but it's an important question and it puts some people back on their heels. I doubt it will do that for you. Here's what the question is. Sandra Cooze, who are you?
Who am I? I'm a person who went through hell so that I can show others the way to heaven.
I've never heard anybody answer that question more beautifully than that. So I truly appreciate that
Thank you.
answer. Really fantastic. Let's talk a little bit, not only in poetic nature, but the truth is that I know that to be true about you. So that's what makes this so exceptional of an answer. Let's talk a little bit, Sandra, about what led up to you actually choosing or having been chosen in some ways to be the healer that you are.
Well, it all started when I was 12 years old. My mother made it possible for me to take care of a pony. She made like a dream of a little girl come true. And it was there at the stables where I was molested.
Hmm.
Sexually assaulted by the man who promised my mother he would take care of me and watch over me. It was the stable master who must have been in the 60s. That was only the first incident. When I was 14, I was sexually harassed. When I was between the age of 16 to 17, I was severely bullied in school. Between the age of 19 and 25, I was sexually assaulted multiple times by different men. When I was 22, I was raped. And as if that wasn't enough, when I was seeking help from a professional to help me heal from my trauma, he dismissed me after the first session with the word saying, "Well, I believe you have already worked through it all. What am I supposed to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And that moment made me hit rock bottom. But the beauty of rock bottom is there's only one way, and that's
That's
up.
right. That's right. It's the bottom of the pool. You get to push off the bottom of the pool. That's right. Exactly. So
Yeah.
clinicians who are hearing here, what we got to hear as clinicians is something that I think you're emphasizing, but you didn't underline necessarily, although sort of. which is of all those traumas, each and every one you named, it ends on the one that the clinician served you up with. That you went
Yes.
for help and he turned you away saying, I think you already got this. This was the most traumatic of all of the events, not just the frosting on the cake, not just the cherry on the top, but in fact, the most traumatic event of a whole host of traumatic events, sexualized traumatic events that had happened in your life. And this was the one that really just threw you for the ultimate rock bottom loop.
Yes, it did.
Say more about that. What is it about that experience that really had you like, to the point of, maximum despair?
Well, throughout everything that happened, I was always dismissed. I was dismissed by family. I was dismissed by friends. I was always alone. And the one time I really reached out because I was at my wit's end, didn't like who I had become, and wanted to heal, I get to someone who's not trauma informed, who had no idea what it actually means to be traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt alone. I felt so alone. I felt hopeless. I felt helpless. I was like, how can I change? How can I be better if there's no one there willing to give me a chance to prove it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was an experience of being let down maybe by all of humanity at that point. Yes.
Pretty much, yes.
Mm-hmm. Like you had finally gotten to the point where you realized that you didn't like who you had become. You decided that you would reach out for some vulnerable help. And you were basically told that, there's either nothing that we can do or you're already done or this is as good as it gets or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much
And-
suck it up.
Right. And the impact of that was the one that really sent you flying.
Yes, because I had two choices. I could stay down rock bottom and stay as miserable as humanly possible and possibly go into drugs and alcohol and everything else that comes with it, or I could climb back out.
Right.
Well, to this day, I cannot tell you why I decided to climb back out, but I think I was supposed to.
Right.
Because
And that's what you said. Go ahead.
looking back now I understand trauma because I had to unravel it on my own. I had to figure out why I'm the way I am, why I feel the way I feel, why I do the things that I do, and really go deep in understanding from within why I do all this. And this taught me so much about trauma that probably even professionals understand
Mm-hmm.
because I've lived it. I went through it and I healed, and I just decided that no one on this planet who is looking for help to really heal should be dismissed.
Mm-hmm. So when people are looking for help, someone should be there, or we should all consider the possibility that we can embrace our own capacity to help anyone. So that's suggesting that each of us has the capacity to be a healer. Do you agree with that as a possibility?
I do.
Okay. And then looking on the heels of what you had said earlier, it is important that for any of us to be healers, we will have had to have healed ourselves at some degree.
Yes.
To
We
be
will
in a
have at least have to be one step further ahead than the person we're helping so that we can understand what they're going through. Only when you understand what they're going through at this very moment can you help them because you know what it used to feel like. So you have to be at least one step ahead.
All right. So the idea is that you have to, in some ways, resonate or experience or have an empathic understanding of where your client is so that you can be one step ahead and actually show them the way out or maybe a way towards some degree of resolution. Is that right? Okay. All right, good. And now, most of the trauma that you listed, including, there was one that wasn't necessarily overtly sexual. I believe that was the bullying in high school, but the rest of them were all sexualized, each and every one of them. And, sexually assaulted multiple times between 18 and 25. But then you said there was one particular case where you actually got raped. So I think some of the clients, some of our listeners may want to know what you're saying is the difference between being sexually assaulted and raped. Can you answer that? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it is, of course.
Okay.
Well, being sexually assaulted is without intercourse. For example, The one incident that's still very prominent in my mind is I was sexually assaulted on the dance floor when I was asked to dance, and it was fast Cuban music, and he just held me so close against it, and I could feel how he was rubbing against me and how his penis grew. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't push him away. That's sexual assault.
Okay.
Now, rape, you're actually being entered.
Okay. Understood. So that's the difference. So, and that's a significant difference. Am I right? Like but both of them can leave lifelong traumatic
Yes.
scars. And it sounds like the dance floor one did leave a lifelong traumatic scar, or a hurdle, an obstacle, a slice
Yes.
into your sovereignty and your agency. Yes.
Yes, it did. For different reasons. Not just it was sexual assault, but it happened after the rape, 2 years after, when I was deciding, okay, I'm going to try and go back out again, stop hiding and just go out with my friends. And the first night I go out, this happens. It was
Hmm.
just like a nail in the coffin.
Hmm. I guess at some point, and again, this is please appreciate the sensitive nature of this inquiry. But at some point, it has to feel like you're snake bit, or that somehow you're bringing it on. Even I know if someone else would say that to you, it would be directly insulting. Like if someone said, "You must have asked for it," or that some stupid shit that some people do say. Um, but even from your perspective, that it was happening so frequently, like every time you turned around at exactly the wrong or the right time, there you were again in another assault situation. What is your understanding of that as you look back at your own traumatic history? This idea that there was such a pattern from 12 years, moving forward all the way through another, another few decades, really.
Well, at some point, I thought I must have done something terrible in a past life.
So, like a karma thing, a karmic thing.
Yeah, like karma or cursed or something, because I couldn't understand why me. I never
Right.
thought I was pretty. I never thought that I was the type that men liked. So I never thought I was anything they would thrive for. I never dressed to, what you would think, like,
Suggestively. Yeah.
yeah, even though that shouldn't be an issue, you can dress however you want, and men should still keep their hands off of you, but that's a different story. But yeah, I never understood why me.
Hmm. Yeah. And did you ever come up with some kind of answer of why you, or is the answer so that you could come back and heal, maybe heal others?
A bit of both. A bit
Hmm.
of both. On one side, now when I look back, I'm actually grateful for everything I went through because it helped me understand trauma. It helped me understand what we really have to do to heal. Because
Hmm.
only when you go through everything can you really be present 100% for someone else and say, I know how you feel. And that in itself gives them peace, knowing someone else knows exactly how they feel. And
Right.
then saying, I'm on the other side now. I know how you're going to feel once you're healed.
Okay. Right.
I
That's the
can be the
one step
bridge.
ahead. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just to be clear and to clarify, is there a difference between molestation and sexual assault?
Well, molestation is what you usually call for children.
Right.
So
Okay. Hmm.
adolescents.
All right.
Because I guess they will make it sound less severe than it actually is. It was still sexual assault,
Right. For
but
sure.
I guess they use a different term.
And molestation is not the same as rape for the same reason that sexual assault is not the same
Right.
as rape. Okay. I got that. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about, just having these, and then this bullying stuff sounds like it was like continual day after day after day for the most part. What was
Yeah,
going on in
pretty
school?
much.
Yeah.
Well, good question. It started with spitballs and with kids bugging me in school, like kicking against my foot when I was sitting there and trying to read during recess. And one of the girls in my class bullied my best friend away, the only one that I had, things like that. And then the crescendo came when I wrote a letter to my pen pal telling her about my first boyfriend that I had, how excited I was. And they stole the letter, made copies, and distributed it in the whole school. So that was the crescendo. And luckily, that's when the teachers found out. And that's when all of this stopped.
Hmm. When the teachers found out, they were able to put an end to it, or the girls or the people who were bullying you stopped doing it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, what is it that if people are being bullied or if people are being assaulted, students in high school or maybe younger, who might for some reason be listening to this particular show and this particular episode, is there something that someone can do? What you sound like you actually brought it to the authorities and your parents, and you were dismissed. As it, what they told you it wasn't true, or it didn't happen, or what? What would they tell you?
Well, I went to my grandma because she was my rock back then. And I told her that they are bullying me. And she was like, don't worry, they're going to stop. Just ignore them.
Hmm.
And of course, they didn't.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, but I was dismissed again. So, something that I've learned was that when you're talking to someone who is being bullied, you have to talk to them from their level of understanding. Yes, of course, the bullying is going to stop eventually, just not right now. So, the student needs to know that right now they need to speak up.
Hmm.
They
They
need
need
to
to,
tell the people teachers don't care. I mean, bullying has gotten a lot worse these days than it
for
was when
sure.
I was in school.
Oh yeah.
So now it's usually a time when you actually have to involve the authorities.
Yeah.
It's getting so bad. So bullies are weak. Bullies thrive on making others feel afraid or terrified or just upset, which means trauma creates trauma.
Right.
Bullies are bullies for the fun of it. Bullies are bullies because they've been traumatized, maybe at home, maybe somewhere else. So once we understand the cycle, we can step out of that because being bullied only means that we show weakness. So if we stop showing weakness, they're too intimidated to bully us. We have
Okay.
to find our inner strength and stand up for ourselves.
Okay. Not so easy, but a simple request, not always so easy though.
It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, very worth it. And this idea of hurt people hurting people is what I hear you say, that hurt people hurt people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Another question I have that seems like it would be one that our listeners would be very curious about is, what is your relationship with men now? Are you able to trust men at any level? Are you able to, when you're with me, for instance, or you're with others, are you contracted? Are you, extra cautious? Having a life like this seems like that might leave you there. Or the other part of the question is, when you heal, as you have, are you able to forgive and accept and bring back the compassion and the passion so that you can respect and trust men at some level?
Yes. Well, that's a very big question.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No worries. It's yes, I do have a wonderful husband and a son. And my husband, without realizing, helped a lot in my healing.
Hmm.
One, and I would say that yes, I do feel comfortable around men, but I also have radars up. So if something feels off, I retract automatically. Doesn't mean that I'm afraid or I feel triggered. It's just something doesn't seem right. So I take precautions.
Hmm. Yeah.
But generally, I feel comfortable with men talking, friends, anything that's not an issue anymore.
Uh-huh. And in your healing journey, do you actually heal or treat men as well? Or is this mostly women and girls that you're treating?
Well, I would work with men too, but most men don't resonate with me.
True.
Mostly it's women who resonate with me because they understand and resonate with my story. Whereas men would probably feel more comfortable going to a male expert because he can better understand what they are going through. Thinking about for men, it's the extra layer of not showing emotions.
Hmm. Interesting.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So you mentioned in your writings that it's not the trauma, it's not the trauma itself that is the problem, right? It's how we incorporate the trauma into our lives. So I'm trying to find if I can see the quote here. Yeah, it's not, you do mention it's not a linear process, and that, that the traumatized need to be heard. And therefore, when you have a client, you know that you're not going to turn away until they have either healed or there's some island where letting them off is actually going to be safe and trustworthy.
Yes, very true.
Right.
When I decide to work with someone, I already feel that we are energetically a good match, that they resonate with me and feel safe with me, because it's so important. When you open up to someone, you feel safe in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the person I'm going to work with feels safe with me, it's not going to be working. They have to be 100% resonating with me. And then I work with them until they say, okay, I can do this on my own. It's their choice when they're ready. They will know when they're ready.
So when you tell people how long the treatment or the relationship is going to last, what is your estimation of that? How do you estimate how long it's going to be?
Well, it depends when they're coming to me. When they're coming to me with still very deep trauma, then I would say less than a year, including coaching and the limiting beliefs and everything, not just the trauma, but completely transforming their lives. I always tell them, I want to spend the least amount of time with you so you can start living your life.
Right.
I'm not going to be going to therapy for like 3, 4, 5 years and nothing changes. I want to get you the results so you can start living.
Right. So you say less than a year if they have deep trauma. And
Yes.
is there ever a time where you would estimate that your treatment would last more than a year?
It depends how well they are working with the trauma modality that I use. TIR, traumatic incident reduction, is a very specific modality, but not everybody feels comfortable with that. Sometimes triggers are so deep that it terrifies them. And if that happens, then we go a different route. We go through trauma coaching, which is a little gentler, and I help them release the triggers in a gentler way, and that can take longer.
Okay. And you said TIR stands for
Traumatic incident reduction, the most amazing modality no one has ever heard of.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
I said the most amazing modality no one has ever heard of.
Yeah. So tell us more. How does that work?
Well, traumatic incident reduction, or short TIR, is specifically designed for people who have deep trauma and PTSD. So
Okay.
it can help people release PTSD, which is pretty incredible. I've seen it in my clients and it's amazing.
Okay. And how does it work? What is it? Is there some modality? Does one have to be certified in it? Sounds like, or is there, and there's teachers, there's mentors, or there's courses, or how does one become a facilitator?
Well, to become a facilitator, you have to take the course, the TIR course, and you can find it online on the website, tira.org. And after that, you have to choose to become certified, which means you're doing a year-long certification with a teacher or a mentorship, where they basically define, make the way you use TIR a lot better. And I did that. I'm so glad I did, because I learned so much. And TIR is predictable. It's always the same. We're basically releasing one trauma within 5 to 6 sessions. That's usually all it takes. It's gentle, but it's fast. And it brings results.
Interesting. And is this something that is it primarily, like, it can be for any kind of trauma, for sexualized trauma or pain trauma or watching, or some sort of trauma based on PTSD, like being in an explosion or something like that?
Yes,
Can be
anything.
any traumatic experience. It's very
Yes.
interesting. Okay, good. That is, you're right. I had never really heard of it, and I've been around the block a little bit, so it is sounds like a great treatment that I for one had never heard of either. So that's great. And Sandra, when is it actually the trauma? How is it? Can you help me explain how? And I think I have an answer to this, but I'd love to hear your conjecture, which is, two people go through the same trauma. Let's say they have a very similar trauma, and one person walks away and they are not scarred at all. There's no residual concerns. They're left being as normal as others. as they were before, or whatever normal means. And then the other person is just scarred for life and can barely get out of their home, and is constantly thinking or ruminating or avoiding or doing the hypervigilance, the post-traumatic stress issues, and has their entire life affected by the same trauma that someone else withstood. How do you help explain that for us, people out there curious about the effects of trauma?
Well, we all are different. So we all have our resilience, and there's parts that we struggle with. It depends on our upbringing. Let's say if we were brought up by our family to be afraid of everything, if we have parents who are afraid of spiders, who are afraid of anything that crawls, who are afraid that we could cross the street without looking, and really bring this to our attention each and every time that we're really afraid of breathing, then we're already preconditioned to not feeling in control. Because what trauma does to us, it takes away our sense of being in control.
Mm-hmm.
Because it happens and we don't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're preconditioned by being afraid of everything, then it's easy to add trauma to it, sexual trauma or an accident or being at war, anything, fireworks even.
Right. Those are all traumatic experiences.
Exactly.
I know my cats are totally traumatized by fireworks.
I can imagine.
They really are. Go ahead.
Yeah. But then when we see a person who is brought up to be self-reliant, to challenge themselves all the time. I know my father always taught me to question everything. Don't believe anything you hear, question everything. And I'm so glad he did teach me that. But, some people are raised to be empowered, to go for what they want, to not take no for an answer. And they have a resilience within them that's being taught, that another person who is being taught to be afraid of everything does not have. To them, that would be intimidating, being resilient, like stepping out of the box. Mm-hmm. So in a person who is resilient, who doesn't take no for an answer, who is strong in who they are, it's difficult to traumatize them. Because they can better deal with it than the person who is trained to be afraid of everything.
Right. Understood. So the idea here is, do you have a working definition of this term called trauma? Is there a definition that you like to use in particular? Or I don't mean to catch you off guard, but is it, I think we have different ideas of what trauma is. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, that's pretty traumatic. If I watch someone get run over by a car, that's a different level of trauma. If I actually throw a hand grenade into a village and kill a bunch of children and women and soldiers, that's a different kind of trauma. And if I'm raped, that's a different kind of trauma. So what is there something that encompasses all that so that when we use the word trauma, we know what we're talking about? What is a trauma?
Well, trauma is the lack of being in control.
Okay.
At the very core, what it is.
Okay.
Because things we don't see coming, things that we have no control over. That's why we have so many people perfectionists. Because they try to be in control even though they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I would say is trauma, the lack of being in control.
A lack of being in control. Okay, good. I can understand that. So this is for the people who are more interested or more committed to being in control. Are they more susceptible to trauma, do you think, maybe? Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. It depends on the situation. Yeah. Most of the time we try to create our life around the trauma. So that the trauma is basically in control. So we're always afraid and we never feel in control, but we try to compensate by trying to control everything.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the same time, if the more we heal our trauma, the more we release the need to be in control because we realize we're automatically in control.
Right. Understood. That makes sense too. Thank you. Do you do your work with anyone and everyone around the nation, or who are your customers and where do they come from?
Well, I work with clients from all over the world.
All over the world. Okay. And how do they find you? If someone wanted to look for you and work with you or learn about you or follow you or maybe get to your book or something like that, and your book, Journey to Yourself, How to Heal from Trauma, how would someone find you?
Well, the easiest way to find me is through my website, riseaboveyourstory.com. My book is also on my website. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. And other than that, you can find me on Facebook under Rise Above Your Story,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
or on my YouTube channel, Sandra Cooze Unfiltered.
What is that? Your YouTube channel is called what?
Sandra Cooze Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. Beautiful. Makes a lot of sense. That's a good name for you. Yeah. All right. And so thank you for being on the show. Is there anything you want to say to our listeners at the end here? Something that might maybe a word of wisdom or something to let people know, because we've all been traumatized. And I think you probably have something to help us at least gauge ourselves or walk in the face of the traumas that we've experienced. Is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners on a global level?
Yes. What I would like to say is that we're all limitless. And the only thing that limits us is our limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
So if you want to live the life you always wanted to be limitless, release the trauma, release the
Release,
limiting beliefs, and you will get there.
release
And
the trauma.
it's a beautiful place to be.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Sandra Cooze, everyone. And thank you so much, Sandra, for being on our show and being here with this amazing episode. Thanks you for exploring this really sensitive but somewhat ubiquitous idea and experience of trauma. Each of us have experienced it, and not all of us have been devastated by it. It seems that you took your own devastation and transmuted that into being an exquisite healer. And from all of us, I'm sure, I just want to thank you for being exactly who you are and for having the courage to speak your truth to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
You're
really
welcome.
agree. Here.
Thank you, Sandra. Catch you on the flip side. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you like the show, then feel free to, share it or to like it or comment. And that helps everyone get to the bottom of the show, which is where we need to be. There are certainly a lot of people out here who need to hear Sandra's message. And so please pass that along to any of your friends or colleagues who you think will benefit from this amazing conversation. Thanks, everybody. And we will catch you on the next episode. Bye for now. It's Dr. Fred.